Hi everyone, it's Joey Remini from seekingbalance.com.au. I'm a vestibular audiologist and a neuroplasticity therapist. And one of the perks of my job is meeting people who have remapped their nervous system and their sensory pathways. So today I want to introduce you to Nikki, who's from Australia on the Gold Coast. Thanks for your time today, Nikki, and welcome.
Thanks, Joey. It's really good to be here.
So Nikki has graduated, let's say, although there's no end to Rocksteady, but Nikki's gone through the 6 modules of the Rocksteady program. And what brought Nikki into my world was triple PD, vestibular migraine, and some tinnitus. But triple PD was the big one for Nikki. So this talk could be really useful if you're struggling with triple PD or vestibular migraine. And Nikki's going to share some of her story, and it's quite powerful. So should we start with the ending? Often we start with the beginning, but do you want to start with the happy news to get the listeners in?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So the happy news is when I did get PD in 2022, I was about to start studying a master's degree in counselling in education. I am a high school teacher and I couldn't do it, but I am now,
Mm,
3 years later, halfway through my master's degree, which I thought, back in 2022, I'd never be able to study and work full time. And I've got a big family as well. So I've got a husband who I adore and 6 sons. So I'm pretty busy. And I just didn't think that I would be able to ever get here. And not only that, we're doing a bit of traveling and that's going so well. And yeah, just getting back to the basics of getting back into nature and
mm,
loving life and being really healthy. And yeah, it's something back in 2022. I remember you saying in your book and also I'd listen to you online and you'd say, one day you'll look back and you'll be grateful for this,
mm.
for triple PD. And I just remember thinking you were crazy. I was like, Joey's crazy. How can anyone be grateful for this? And now I go, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely grateful for it because it has reimagined my life.
yeah,
Um, I said to you earlier, I do get a bit emotional about it because it was such a dark place, and
mm,
to see in that darkness, dark
mm,
night of the soul, to see in that darkness that
mm.
there is light. There absolutely is light and hope for anyone that's listening to this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
can I ask, it's a somewhat personal question, but just for our listeners to gauge, how do you feel in your body in this moment? What's your relationship to your body now? Because we all know the horror story of symptoms.
Yeah.
Today, how do you feel in your body?
I'm absolutely, I never thought about my body.
Mm,
I actually never had any connection to it at all, other than probably didn't like it much, As a girl growing up, I was always, you know, negative about my body and really I misused it a lot, didn't treat it well, didn't look after it well. I played a lot of sport,
mm,
but I actually feel really one with it. And, my friends think have turned a bit hippie, some of them, but the connection to our body is just so important. It is the brain and the body is just so important. I feel very connected to it and I actually really listen to it.
mm,
So I can get some symptoms where I'm feeling a little bit skewy and a bit not quite right sometimes.
mm,
But it's actually, I remember you saying our body doesn't have words,
mm,
but it sends us these things. It's its language, And so I will stop and I will say no to some things and I will go and look after myself. Um, and I actually really love my body.
mm.
Like, I actually really am grateful and
Yeah,
take a lot more care of it. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. And so I have that connection with it that I'd never had. I'm 52 and I'd never had it.
mm,
Um, all those years, I'd never had it. So I am very, very grateful. Yeah.
yeah. I almost have this. funny image of I need a t-shirt that says beware because if you come near me, you're going to start loving your body.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that's really what I teach and it's what I ooze and it's so primal. Because if we're
Yeah.
hating ourselves and hating what we feel, it has a chemical effect on us. And it
Yeah.
makes everything difficult from sleep to sex to relationships to mothering to career. But when we
Yeah.
have a loving relationship with our body, our dreams come to life.
Mm.
We sleep more deeply. Our friendships deepen. Our connection to
Yeah.
nature, which you mentioned, it sort of everything's opens up. We have this
Yeah.
expansive experience instead of this contraction and symptomatic experience. And dear listeners, this is what you control. You have the volume switch because if you shift your relationship to your own body, which you 100% control, no pill, no doctor can do that for you. You
Yeah.
control how you treat yourself and how you choose to be in relationship with yourself. That's your power. And so Nikki's going to share her story of that journey of becoming friends with her body and building that love. It doesn't happen overnight, it's a journey. Um, so
And
thanks.
I think that's why triple PD or anything that you might have the migraines or the tinnitus um, is where it is we are lucky to have it. I know there's going to be so many people listening to this going, how ridiculous, because I was one of them. But it's an epiphany. It's an absolute epiphany. And I think the lucky ones are the ones that get it, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of people that are going to go through life never having experienced a connection, or having experienced that they hold the power, how powerful we are,
Yeah,
um, of our own lives and our own physical well-being, that we have a lot of power about that.
yeah,
And I think anyone that gets this, that's able to get into the program or to self-heal, um, with help of you, or whatever they do, whatever works for them, um, it's a privilege in a way, because we've experienced something that not everyone will get to experience.
yeah. Or some people will have it in their 80s and 90s. And then there's
Yeah.
that huge amount of, we call it psychological backdraft, where when you
Mm.
touch this place of loving yourself, there's grief for all the decades where you didn't love yourself. And so
Yeah.
some of us reach that in our teens, and some of us in our 20s, and some of us in our 30s, and some people it's all the way through to the 80s and 90s when they have these epiphanies. So we're never
Yeah.
too old to learn, um, but leaning in toward the pain and the symptoms is the journey of learning love. You can't go under it, you can't go over it. You really have to go into the pain. And my second book, Sense and Ground, which will be out March 2026, so it's a bit of a wait. I talk really specifically about the depth of that journey of moving toward the sensitivity and the pains. They're calling our attention, and it can be any variety of quote unquote symptoms. It's the body saying,
Mm.
hey, I need your attention here. I need your
Yeah.
loving attention here, not your hatred attention, not your rejection attention, not your shame attention. I need your loving attention here because I'm hurting. And in
Mm.
that process, our biochemistry changes and our neural maps enter neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
You want to share a little bit about your journey? You're mentioning that you randomly heard a receptionist say, hey, there's a woman with a book, Rock Steady or something. And so you Googled me, and you found me through the book and through a waiting room and a receptionist, and things were pretty dark and hopeless. Do you want to take us back to that stage of life?
Yeah, sure. I actually woke up on January the 9th, 2022, to go to the bathroom. And I remember it was January the 9th because it was my dad's birthday. And I woke up, went to the bathroom, got back into bed, and I got vertigo.
Mm,
So the room started spinning. And I've never experienced it before. Um, but I knew what it was because I've had friends that had vertigo. So it is a frightening thing when it happens to you,
yeah.
because the room is spinning and you can't control your eyes or anything. So that lasted for a bit. And then when I got up, I decided to Google how to put the crystals back in my ears, because I knew that that's the thing. So I
Hmm.
did a few exercises to try and get them back in, and I'm pretty sure that it worked. However, over the next few weeks, I started to feel like I was on a boat
Mm.
and everything was off kilter and the floor would drop out. And I thought, this is really odd. It's not the vertigo that I experienced in bed,
Yeah.
but something's not right. And I noticed then that it got more and more. So
Mm.
it was maybe happening a few times a day. And then within 2 to 3 weeks, it was happening all of the time, even when I'd lay down to go to bed. And the only time it didn't happen was when I got in the water at the beach. Wasn't happening. And I started to think, this is really odd. If this is meant to be with me all the time, why is it not with me in the water? Anyway, I booked into a vestibular physio and he did a few exercises to check that the crystals were back in my ears. And he sort of said, look, come back in a week, do these exercises at home. And I did all of the things I was, a good patient, did all of the things I was meant to do, head turning and up and down and putting an X on the window and it wasn't, nothing was working. And I stopped eating. I didn't want to eat. I felt so unwell. And then I started to get really bad headaches, like migraines, to the point that I'd need a bucket beside me because I'd want to vomit.
Yeah.
And so it was just terrible. So I remember going back to his office and I'd been in to see him and he sort of was a bit perplexed. He sort of didn't know, what was going on. And he said, look, go and try these exercises a bit more and I'll see you in a month. And I was like,
Mm.
okay. And I was waiting to pay in the waiting room and because the receptionist was on the phone. And I heard her say, oh, are you in Geelong? There is a lady in Geelong that, oh, she's got a book or I think you can go and see her, but she's got a book as well. It's Rocks or Rock Steady or something like that. And I just remember going, right, I'm going to remember that. And I paid and I went down to my car and I Googled you and I saw the book and I was like, right, I ordered it. And then when I got home, I went onto your website and I found that you had free testimonials and all the rest of it. Now, I didn't do much with it. I think I was a bit scared and a bit in shock, like, is this me? I don't know. Anyway, a few weeks later, I was still waiting for the book and I booked in to see my GP and he referred me to an ear, nose, and throat person.
Mm.
And I went and saw him. And this is where I want to give people a bit of hope because he did a few tests and then he handed me a pamphlet and he said, you've got triple PD. And I said, what's that? And he said, oh, it's where you're persistently dizzy all of the time. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And he said, oh, well, there's not really a cure. And three things you can do are you walk, you go on antidepressants, and you see a counselor. And I turned the leaflet over, and on the back it said, the last line of the pamphlet was, um, not all will be cured of this illness, or this disease is not curable for
Mm.
all. And I remember walking out being absolutely devastated. And I did the three things that it said, went on antidepressants, never, and I look good for some people, but I actually wasn't depressed. I was probably anxious, but because of the dizziness more than
Yeah.
anxious first. Um, and yeah, and then did see a counselor, which was a little bit helpful because I could talk about how I was feeling. But then your book turned up, and I read the first page, and you had me straight up because you understood how I was feeling, and then it went from there. I could start your program kindly, you able me to do that. Yeah, and then that was the start of my journey. Probably 2 months into me feeling really really terrible.
Yeah.
Um,
I want
to
to
the point,
I want to just give people a little summary of what happened there from like understanding the anatomy. Because a lot of these experiences and quote unquote symptoms, I prefer to call them sensations because it's more accurate. Symptom is a
mm,
judgment, like this shouldn't be here. Well, what if the body is giving a sensory message that is exactly perfect? What if we're supposed to be feeling spinning, right? Because that's a signal my body wants me to connect with. So if we think about the body as
mm,
an intelligent somatic vehicle, all of those body sensations through the eight senses, which includes vestibular and proprioception senses, they're meaningful, actually. We're supposed to feel them, but the medical world sometimes pathologizes them as bad, wrong diseases, you know? So anyway,
Mm.
we've got our eyes and our ears with visual information and the ears with sound and movement, vestibular information. And throughout our entire body, head to toe, we've got proprioceptive signals which help us locate, orient, and sense and feel. So it's not only touch, it's also locating. If I close my eyes and start moving my hand and finger out here, can I locate where my left arm is, right? When you have of any example, any experience of vertigo, it's mismatch. It's like, okay, well, the signals I feel like I'm receiving don't match what's actually happening. So it's
Yeah.
very discombobulating, but there are real signals that are not quite adding up in the body. There's sensory mismatch. Neuroplasticity and Rocksteady help you to redefine your sensory maps so things make sense. So it is treatable and it is reversible, but a doctor or a
Yeah.
surgeon can't do that for you. So because they don't understand that invisible process, they may say things like, there's nothing I can do, or there is no medical cure. And that's in some ways accurate, but in other ways it's very misleading and it's misinformation because there's a lot you can do for yourself by shifting that relationship to your body sensations and learning how to build steadiness pathways, groundedness pathways, clarity pathways. We actually have a lot of control over that inner terrain. So the BPPV is the most common one that you mentioned. You go in bed, you get the big spins. Google it, treat it, right? That's pretty common and that's great. But some of those crystals can also fall into the otolith parts of the ear, which is our boom boom, acceleration, deceleration. So some of those crystals, as they're moving from the canals into our otoliths, for the next few days, we can feel a bit drunken and a bit woozy because the crystals are actually moving in the organs. So again, that's perfect. That means you're healing. You want to feel woozy. But if no one's explaining that to you, it triggers a really understandable anxiety. And that's where a BPPV normal healthy event of vertigo and the restabilizing and the normal wooziness can turn into anxious panic and PPPD because there's not enough empathic information that's helping make sense of the full experience. And the reason why sometimes we can feel all woozy and drunken kind of all day long, but then you have a shower or you jump on your bicycle or you go for a swim and you're like, oh, I feel good, is because you're activating your proprioceptive system. The water is literally massaging the skin cells and the body. So that proprioceptive system is turning up the neural signals. And that overrides the dizzy signals. And so in the Rocksteady program, we're learning how to really boost the proprioceptive system so we don't have to swim around all day perpetually like in the ocean or a swimming pool or a bath. We're learning how to use proprioception in really clever and tricky ways to build that sensory system because it's so stabilizing. So that's where the body scan becomes absolutely central throughout the entire 6 modules. So it does, your story actually does make perfect sense from that neuroscience point of view. Um, and I'm so pleased you found Rocksteady and you were able to advocate for yourself for a scholarship and pay what you can to be part of it. So I think that's another roadblock. People say, oh, I can't afford it. It's like, well, just pay what you can. But that actually takes a lot of courage to email out and say, what are the options for me? This is where I live. This is my capacity. So if you're listening, advocate for yourself because that's all part of changing that relationship to yourself. Coming back to your story, can you tell us, Nikki, a little bit about your experience of body scans? Because it can be so foreign in the beginning. Where are you? Yeah, tell us about that.
Um, can I say the body scans was the core for me? Like it was the main part. I had found a lot of other things that helped as well,
Mm,
but there was a point where I was doing 4, 5 body scans a day,
mm,
and actually looked forward to I got pretty good at them in the sense that it was nearly like an out of body experience in a way that I was so I could feel. I remember the first time it happened, there's a bit where you say, feel the shirt on your back,
mm,
round your, and I could deeply feel
mm.
my collar touching around my neck, and it just was profound
Yeah.
and so strong. Um, And even my husband could see how much they were helping. And can I just say to anyone listening, it's true, it doesn't happen straight away.
Mm.
We, like anyone, I was probably looking for a quick fix, a tablet or a potion to take that would make me feel better. And then I looked at the body scans and went, oh, okay, if I do this for a few days, hopefully, but it does take time. It
Mm.
takes time to build it up. And because I guess you are rewiring those, pathways.
Yeah.
Um, I the sitting up one I loved because I could feel the bum on my bum on the chair. And then I went next step where I found a fella that can't even remember his name now. But he talks about feeling the space around you as well.
Hmm.
So he does a very long, it's a 40-minute sort of but sometimes if I needed a bit more, I'd go and do that really long and you can actually feel the space around you and it does take a
Mm.
bit of time to get there. But yeah, they were just integral. And my hubby, I remember at Easter in 2020, because we're Catholic, we went to a Good Friday celebration and I was feeling so unwell in the church. And I remember coming home and I just fell into his arms and I said, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. And he said, stop crying, go into your room and do a body scan. He said, go and do the body scan. And I remember feeling like a naughty girl, but I did. I just took a chair into, and I always get a hard chair when I do your sitting up body scan. I really loved the feeling of my bottom on the chair and my feet on the floor. And I would close my eyes because I feel like that's very much you are in the zone.
Yeah.
But I guess people will do it whatever way they want. And I did it that day, and I felt really supported by him as well because he didn't think it was mumbo jumbo. He saw that it was really important as well. And so yeah, the body scans are integral. If you find anything else that helps, that's great. But I feel like that's part of the recipe you can't leave out. I really
Well,
do.
if you think about it, we've got these neural networks that are creating our reality. So if you are
Mm,
locked in a triple PD neural network that is just firing day in, day out, the only way to quote unquote cure it is to change that network. And the only way to change your neural networks is to put your attention upon the sensations that you want to grow. Because where attention goes in the body, that's where more neural allocation and more neural networks are starting to synapse and build connections. So if I'm like, you know what? I just want to feel steadiness. That's my goal. That's my desire. That's like what I need for my mental clarity. I need to feel steadiness. I need to locate my steadiness in my body. Is it between my hips? Is it, spreading my toes into the floor? Is it lifting my chin a little high? I actually somatically map that feeling and I get to know it. And like you said, once you really start to get more and more neurons synapsing on that steadiness, instead of focusing on triple PD, which grows the triple PD network, when you focus on the steadiness, it is like a journey. You called it out of body. It's actually in body. It's like this
yeah.
journey into this universe inside, which is all sensory based. Because it's not imagining standing under a waterfall or listening to somebody else's meditation, right? Which is not body scanning. If you go on YouTube and listen to somebody else, you're not in your body. You're following somebody else's instructions. But if you go into your body and actually map yourself, you build new neural networks and you get that power back where you're like, wow, I actually feel taller and stronger and more grounded because I cultivated that.
Mm, absolutely.
Can I ask again, kind of a personal question, but I think it's relevant for the beautiful listeners who will be attracted to your conversation, is can you body scan without an audio accompaniment? Like, could you just do it if you're sitting in the car while you're lying in bed, or do you rely on the instructions?
I could, but I never found it as strong. And it was your voice. So
Mm.
it was your voice that was really helpful to me. Um, so I just had you saved on my phone. So
Nice.
I would say 95% of the time, but there were times when I'd go to the shops and I'd feel awful because that was the other thing that I couldn't cope with was the light and the busyness of, and I had to do a big shop because I've got a big family, so I'd have to go into the supermarkets, and some days I was so off.
Yeah.
And I remember holding the trolley and feeling my feet on the floor of
Perfect.
the supermarket. So, and then there was another day where I got on a bike and rode my sons to the shop, two of them. And I was really off that day and walking through the shops. I just remember, and I think I might have even put this on the Facebook page years ago, um, feeling my feet walking through the supermarket, that really deep sense of connection to the floor. So I guess I was doing it at times.
Yes. And you know
Mm,
what? Sense and Ground, the new book and the new program, is about cultivating that 24/7.
yeah.
Because when we're consciously connected to our body and specifically pleasure, we relax our nervous system and we
Mm,
become much more magnetic and feminine. So Rocksteady is really focused on what do we do with quote unquote symptoms. So people are in there because something in their body is hurting and painful, tinnitus, vertigo, dizziness, whatever. But sense and grown is that next step of saying, okay, well, symptoms don't really bother me anymore. I've ticked that box. But how do I cultivate these feelings that I desire to feel so that I feel kind of on purpose and clarity and connected? And that again comes through the body scan. So the body scan is not all about sickness and disease and healing. It's also really about being deeply connected to our sons
yeah.
and our environment. I think you mentioned as well that getting back into nature was sort of part of the happy ending, that we can feel so contracted and agoraphobic and like, oh God, the world's just too stimulating. But
Mm,
once we build these steadiness and groundedness pathways and we learn how to center ourselves, we can expand back out into the world, baby steps, because we don't want to flood the system. Because remember, you are literally building new synaptic connections and we can flood. We can do too
mm,
much too fast and we're just bedridden. So it's a titration. Rocksteady is a titration. But yeah, I wanted to really paint that picture that you have the happy ending, but you actually keep growing, you keep expanding. I think you said, you learn to imagine new ways of being in the world. It's a really powerful and beautiful and accurate statement. You start really
mm.
sick, you sort of get over that, but then you keep,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's almost like the body scan becomes a resource that's just in you anyway.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was talking with some of my other community members about, sex and pleasure and orgasms. And they're like, what do you mean you body scan while making love? I'm like, that's what sex is. Your
Yeah.
mind is on sensation. You're feeling big arousal neurons that are being stimulated sexually. It's literally the embodiment of a body scan. And if we're not body scanning while making love, we're not there. We're actually not
Yeah.
feeling like we're listing the shopping list or imagining a fantasy. You're actually not in your body. Body scanning is great training for great sex. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. So actually body scanning is something we do. We probably just don't realize we're doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the really important thing is our suffering can have meaning. I think
Hmm.
that's the thing that we're living in a world where it says get out of it, get away, avoid it. Avoid suffering as much as you can. I mean, nobody wants to, please give me some suffering, over
Yeah.
here. Nobody wants to think like that, but um, if we can enter into it, like you say, lean into it. If we can enter into, and I fought it for a long time, but there was a moment in the program where I went, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna submit this. I'm actually going to say I surrender. I surrender, and I'm going to go in, and I don't know what the timeline's going to be, but here I am. I'm going to go into it. And if anything, this illness or challenge or whatever you want to call it, has really taught me to love in a different way because, often we can come with our judgments on other people. But I think one thing it's taught me is no one knows what's going on in someone else's life because I looked very normal. I did lose
Yeah.
a lot of weight. It's about 7 kilos because I wasn't eating. But other than that, I was going to work until I had a month off because I couldn't do it anymore. But I did look very normal. But the hell that I was feeling,
Mm.
and so many people would be going through different things like that. And to love people as they are
Yeah.
is probably the biggest lesson to not only love myself, which I didn't love myself well,
Mm.
um, to go, you know what, I've been given this body and it's pretty bloody amazing. It's given birth to six babies and, you know, I used to be a high jumper and, all these things that you can do with your body. But I didn't like my body and I didn't like who I was really deeply as a person, wanted to be something different. And I think
Mhm.
when you say we'll be grateful for this triple PD or whatever you've got in time, you'll be grateful. Absolutely. I just want to let people know out there that absolutely you will be grateful for this because it teaches us to love in another way, ourselves and others around us.
I just got
Yeah.
goosebumps. And it's so true because it's almost like the learning never ends because life doesn't suddenly become easy with,
No.
rainbows and chocolate and people dropping your food at the door. That's not what rock steady means, and that's not what neuroplasticity means. And that's not what finding the sacred gift in suffering means. What we're talking about is that every year of our life, every season of our life will probably have some kind of random challenge, whether it's our own personal health, hormonal shift, career
Yeah.
changes, maybe a loved one gets a cancer diagnosis, maybe there's a local flood, right?
Mm.
Challenges come.
Yeah.
Life brings us lots of challenges. Once we learn how to move into the pain, it's actually, this is where the orgasmic analogies or metaphors start to make sense. Once you learn to open up and surrender to the pain and to really let it wash over you without resistance, and it's almost like the body is saying, can you love this too? I'm giving you this really annoying signal. Can you love this too? Do you have that much love in you?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my
Absolutely.
God, I hate this so much. And I'm going to have to learn to love, be loving in this moment, even though I hate this feeling or this sound or this signal. How can I be loving? And I often think about the irrational, noisy toddler tantrum, preschooler tantrum. You can love the child and be loving toward the child, even when you sort of hate the tantrum.
Yeah.
So you're learning to hold both. And what that does is it really grows our relationship to love and surrender. And there is no suffering when you open up to pain. The
Yeah.
the expansion happens, there's relief. I think there's pride. It's like I did it. I moved through that because the pain comes and it goes. Just like an orgasmic wave. The sensations come and then they go. So there's a waxing and a waning, and we're learning to ride those waves without judgment.
Yeah.
And that skill set is for life because life will keep giving us the next challenge, which we have to learn how to bring love to that too. So,
Yeah.
um, that to me is kind of like the sacred gift in the suffering and the pain that we're always learning, God, am I strong enough for this?
Mm, absolutely.
It's really beautiful the way you're languaging it, and it sounds like you were able to both take responsibility for yourself and your own healing in really powerful ways. Because we can also fall into victim. This is too much for me. I'm
Mm,
powerless. Somebody else
yeah.
fix me, right? We can blame
Yeah.
the husband, we can blame the kids, we can blame the career, we can blame the medical system. That's when we're in that victim space, which, we all
Mm,
have.
yeah.
But to just recognize, you know what, that place isn't actually my truth. I
Yeah.
am powerful. I choose whether I log in or not. I choose whether I
Mm,
body scan or not. I choose whether I hate myself or not. I choose from that place, I suddenly become powerful. And from
yeah.
there, we can even ask for support from our husband or ask for support from our children. Hey, kids, can you help out with dinner tonight? And that's all part of the empowerment and all part of the journey. Do you have any little examples there of when, as you were learning to advocate for yourself or renegotiate your home ecosystem to support your healing? Do you have any examples as a mother of six boys and working school teacher? You would have had a lot to juggle, realistically.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I was a bit of a people pleaser. I could never say no. I always had to look like I was superwoman and super mum and
Yep.
super teacher. And I had to ask for a month off work, to tell you the truth. So that was pretty and the day that I asked was you know, really had to drop my pride because I had to leave a classroom. The floor had dropped out of the room and I just cried in front of the kids. I had a year 12 English class and I had to leave the room and someone took my class. And I remember standing out on the lawns with the deputy and just saying, I'm just so unwell. And that it was hard because they didn't really understand what I had either, which I get, totally get it now. Um, it was hard in the moment because sometimes you want your friends to have a bit more of an understanding. And I even remember reading something that you'd written to say that, you know, don't be angry with your friends if they don't get it, because it's something that it's really difficult to understand. So yeah, I had to have a month off, and then there was certain things I couldn't do around the house. And the boys were boys are beautiful, I think. They love their mums.
Yeah.
And, you know, every now and then they'd say, how's your dizzy thing going, mum?
Oh,
And I'd go, yeah, not good, mate. And, um, so yeah, there was things that I had to drop and leave, and having that month off work, I have got hundreds of sick days. I'm not a person that takes time off. So it was a bit of a humiliation for me, but um,
mm,
so needed. And even today, I will take a sick day if I
good.
know I'm a bit out of whack.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it is like taking the car to the mechanic. It's just being human, but it's interesting how, especially as sort of highly capable women, very self-sufficient women, we can get into that pattern of always fixing it ourselves and problem solving it ourselves and learning how to articulate this invisible space.
yeah,
Really hard. Learn and the other thing is sometimes it's like, okay, ask for what I need. Ask for what do I need? What do I need? What I don't know what I need. What do I, how do well, right, and then it's like another. So it's a whole journey of learning to put language to something where we've had no role modeling. Or
yeah,
in the past, we may have advocated for ourselves when we were younger and we were told, don't be stupid, don't be silly, that's dramatic, right? So we
yeah,
kind of shut down that part of ourselves that might be sensitive to our own needs because it's been gaslit.
yeah,
We're actually learning to uncover some of this traumatized terrain that's been potentially slumbering and asleep and neglected. And it comes up, and often it comes up with menopause,
yeah,
perimenopause, menopause, because the hormones are changing, which affects every cell in our body. And we don't have that battery reserve anymore to call upon. So if we
yeah,
need something, we need it now. And the body's just like volcanic. And I think that age bracket of perimenopause and menopause is when a lot of vestibular migraine and triple PD shows up. So
yeah,
there probably is some kind of hormonal transition link as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Um, and how beautiful that your boys were checking in. I think as a human species, where this is my observation, and you're a teacher, so you can chime in here, Nikki. We're learning how to actually speak from the body. I talk about this in both of my books. My new book's not out yet, but when it's out, you'll read it. How do we talk to the body or from the body instead
mm,
of about the body or at the body, right?
yeah,
And children pick that up really quickly, I've noticed. So it's like
mm,
role modeling to our children how to communicate, I feel hurt or I feel sad and I need comfort. Um,
yeah,
and often we'll talk around these things rather than speak from the body. I'm feeling vulnerable or my heart's pounding. Um,
yeah,
and it's not hard to do, but then again, it's also not so culturally normalized.
yeah, that's right.
Um, and I'd love to hear your take on this if you've played around with it at all. And that's where the body scan comes in helpful with children, because when they're tuning into their body, they then actually have material, they have data,
Yeah,
they have that relationship. But when my children get into their fights and they're at each other, right? They're fighting over a toy or whatever it is. If we can slow them down enough and calm down the volcanoes enough to say, communicate how you're feeling. When they stop and say, I need a big brother to give me a cuddle. I feel sad. The other one will just stop giving like it. The whole energy shifts
Yeah.
coming from that place of embodiment.
Yeah.
So it really is quite powerful.
I think I totally agree with you. And I think that's another thing that, um, I've really learned in this time is I've probably always been a girl that feels things. I feel things and I feel like I'm fairly intuitive. I know when something's a bit off and I feel it, but I've never been able to be open about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of haven't spoken about how I'm feeling. And after getting really sick in 2022, you know, if anything, like, if I had to talk to a friend about something,
Mm,
um, I was able to do that. So I was able to say to a really close friend of mine that I cared deeply for, look, I'm going to be really vulnerable here, but is everything okay? Because, you know, and just being able to do that has been it's been mind-blowing for me as well.
mm,
Because I guess it can deepen relationships.
mhm.
It can also show you, who you love and who loves you, and
Yeah,
all those sorts of things as well. So, and being more open with my husband, I guess, being able to
yeah,
tell him,
yeah.
when I'm not feeling good, or if something's worrying me, or I used to just shut up about it. And I see now to speak about it. I've said to him many times since, I've sort of been better. Um, I'm not feeling really good today. Things are a bit off, and to have his understanding has just been awesome. So even this illness has helped our relationship as well, which I never thought would happen either, because it was tough for him. For a year, he was watching me have to go to bed, and he'd have to step up and do things, and I saw that that was tough for him as well. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just can't reiterate enough for people that are listening, because I used to listen to these testimonials when I was in the thick of it, and
Hmm.
how much it helped me. And I just want people to know that it is so true that you are capable of getting better.
Yeah,
And not only getting better, but capable of opening up the person that you are.
yeah.
That we try and shove everything down, and yeah.
It's the
It's like a
expansive
ball.
orgasmic version of you. Like,
Yeah,
moving orgasms
absolutely.
away from sex, which is kind of where we lock it up in that. Actually, no, 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 it's a way of life. You can be expansive into anything you do. It's a feeling
Yeah.
of receiving pleasure. Like, literally washing the dishes. It's like, I'm just going to enjoy the dishwater.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sway
Or
my hips and
brushing your teeth with the opposite hand,
yeah, it's like
when you're actually really feeling. Yeah.
bringing playfulness and receptivity and pleasure no matter where we go is
Yeah.
all these new neural pathways and a new way of being in relationship with our entire nervous system. And mind you,
Yeah.
very feminine. A lot of the feminine qualities have been squashed culturally for millennia. No one's to blame. But women
Mm.
are learning how to be in their bodies in a way that is just more natural instead of like
Yeah.
keep say this, do this, dress this way, be the good girl, right? People please. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I just want to shake it out and,
Yeah.
that freedom, and the movement's really key. Like I'm not convinced women are designed to sit and meditate. So a lot of
Mm.
my community members will do their body scans while moving, while spiraling, while rocking, while swaying. You get to be in your body in whatever way helps you connect to your body.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
really special. I wanted to close our conversation, Nikki, feeding off where you've just come from. And so I'm going to ask for your wisdom. Okay.
Hmm.
So I had a beautiful conversation with a friend yesterday who we spoke, and she was entering the darkness. She's like the flames going out and entering the darkness. And I said, you know what? Not one part of me is worried. Not one part of me is nervous. And I'm a little bit excited for you because you're going there. You're going into the dark. And we
Yeah.
spoke about how unhelpful it is when there's family members or friends who are worried and freaking out about the pain, the journey, the darkness, the illness, right? And they're
Mm.
always trying to like be happy and get better. And fix,
Yeah.
fix, fix, advice, 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 and how that's actually kind of unhelpful. And so if
Mm,
you're listening to this and you're like, freaking hell, I'm in the darkness, right? I'm struggling, I'm in the dark and I'm resisting it. I need to learn to surrender and go there and open up. We also kind of need to teach our friends how to celebrate us and support us. And some people will feel too vulnerable and too aggravated by the darkness because they haven't faced their own, you know? You can really only become an advocate of the darkness once you've gone through your own darkness and you're like, oh, the gift is at the end. Keep going, keep going. Pack a muesli
yeah.
bar, pack a bag, just go in there. And,
Yeah.
give me a call, send me a text, I'll light you a candle. I'm on the other end. Body scan through it. You need your little support team of people who are not afraid of your illness and not afraid of your darkness and not afraid of your dark soul journey. So,
Yeah.
my question for you, Nikki, is what was some of the most nourishing things that people said to you that supported you? Maybe we could offer that to the listeners, some supportive encouragement.
Yeah, I think my mum and dad have deep faith, and they have never shied away from, they don't like seeing their child suffer,
Mm,
obviously. Um, but whenever I'd ring mum and dad and just say, "Oh, I'm in a hell," that they never said, "Oh no, quick, what could go to the hospital or what could," they were very much just stay there. There will be, they have this faith that there will be that resurrection at the end. There will be
mm,
something at the end. And I read a book years ago, Dark Night of the Soul, and every single person in the world has to have some sort of moment like this, whether
mm,
some some will ignore it and will choose not to enter into it, and
mm,
that's their choice. Some will fight it and will get so angry about it that they end up a bit bitter, I guess.
mm,
But if we know that every single person has to have a moment in their life where they realize they're not the God, they're not number one, that we surrender ourselves and we go, I'm a pretty amazing person. And if I can just surrender myself and go, yep, I am beautiful
mm,
and I am worthy of love, um, then that's where we're going to find it in this. That's why we can't avoid the suffering. I know it's
mm.
because you don't discover yourself in you, you can be happy in the joyful moments, but it's not where you deeply discover who you are.
Yeah, and
And I think that
it's easy to be loving when life is ecstatic and
absolutely,
joyful, right? That's not hard. That's
yeah,
that's the easy bit. It's
yeah,
it's when the toddlers are tantruming, the house is a mess, you've got pain in your body, your ears are throbbing or, screeching. It's when you feel messy and your skin's dry and you're tired and like just everything is compounding into difficulty after difficulty after difficulty. And then there's bills you've got to pay and then your relationship is strained and you've got to go to work and you can't be, ugh, right? In those
yeah,
moments, right? The prickly,
yeah,
pointy moment, that's
yeah,
when we learn love.
absolutely,
And that's when we no longer reach out for the medicine or the drugs
absolutely.
to do the work for us externally. We actually dig deep within us and we're like, can I bring the oxytocin from within me and love
Mm,
myself in this prickly moment? And that's
yeah,
when we really start to get neuroplasticity working because we've
yeah,
surrendered, we've opened up, and we've generated our own chemical courage, really. Chemical,
mm,
the love drugs, oxytocin, serotonin, opioids, endorphins. We cultivate that
yeah,
when it's hard.
yeah,
Birthing,
absolutely.
birthing teaches us these skills physiologically.
Mm,
It's an opportunity to really open up into the contractions and
yeah,
get that natural endorphin opioid happening. And I would
yeah,
love my prayer for the universe is that more women get that experience.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's really beautiful. You've got that familial sense of faith. I think spirituality and believing in something greater is enormously important. And we are all part of a shared ecosystem and we are all unique, gifted, important. We all have something to contribute. And my prayer for everyone is that you start to claim, own, and know what your gifts are. so you can
Yeah.
unapologetically give them forwards because we need that for our health.
Yeah.
And if we don't know who we are and we're just stuck on the couch feeling sick, our gifts are left unattended.
Yeah.
So,
And we don't have to do big, big things. You love in little ways. So I wake up in the morning and I go to school and
mm,
I could have 3 or 4 moments with different students where I'm able to love them, in a little way.
beautiful.
And I think if we can all get the opportunity to do that in whatever job or family we have, or and the tricky bit is loving the ones that are difficult to love, and that's we can also do that when we realize that we're a bit broken too,
Mm.
we're a bit
Yep.
broken too. Um, but yeah, I just like Joey, I cannot thank you enough for the work that you're doing. It wasn't by chance that I was in that waiting room that day and I heard your name and the name of your book, that I was able to, then buy the book and go on that journey. And look, for people that are listening, I probably really wasn't close to 100% better for another year
Yeah.
after having started the program,
Mm.
but I did it every day, and there were some days I didn't do it well. And like I said to you earlier, there were days when I wake up and I was great, and then 2 days later I was back dizzy again and just thinking, what's
Mm.
going on here? And just that reminder that it's not linear.
Yeah.
It is a bit like that, but there does get a point where those neurons have rewired, whether it be 6 months, 2 years, 4 years for some people.
Hmm.
Um, it can happen. I am
Yeah.
living proof that it can happen.
So beautiful. Congratulations. I love hearing that clarity, you know. It's in the past. It's 100%. I'm better. I
Yeah,
love that. The cyclical journey will also be because we're cyclical beings and we have these hormonal life stages. And so
yeah,
that's all normal. You know, we have high intense sensory days and then we have those milder, quieter sensory days. And so learning to understand your cycles is really relaxing because you don't fight it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
To learn more, visit seekingbalance.com.au. I have a free starter kit. I have a free Facebook group. We have the Rocksteady program, which is the big comprehensive support community. We meet twice a month on live group calls. We have grief and soul tending circles to get all juicy and real and vulnerable. They're fabulous. In fact, they've changed my life, undeniably, the grief and soul tending circles. And you can bring your questions to the Q&A calls and meet your people, be a part of a community that gets it, right? The other thing is sometimes it's hard to know where you are or to articulate what you're feeling. And when you sit in a circle of people and they're talking about their shopping and their kids and their job and their this and their that, you'll be like, oh, that's what I'm feeling. I had no idea I felt that, but I feel that. I'm so glad you said that because they're my words. And so you learn from other people. Um, and in shamanic womencraft language, you know, we call that the circle of shaman, right? Which is that
Mm.
we're all equal, we're all peers, and we're all learning from each other. We're all mirrors of each other. And so sometimes somebody else will find the words you need. And as you listen, you get a lot of healing. So it's this really beautiful community connection. Yeah.
In fact, can I say there was a lady at my work that got triple PD the year after, and we were able to then talk to each other. And I remember going to her one day saying, "Oh, Monique, I'm really dizzy. I'm really dizzy." And she's like, "No, you've got this. Remember, you've been better. You've got better." And we're just able to have each other's backs a bit. And I was just so grateful to her. And even today, we went to a 60th the other night and we were talking about it. And I said to her, "Oh God, it's crazy, isn't it, that we're here and we're having fun?" And she said, "Oh, it's just so lucky that we had each other at work. It wasn't great that she got it, but um, it's an illness that
Mm,
when someone else has it, they get you.
yeah.
They understand, and it is really difficult for those that don't have it to understand that. Not that I would wish it on them, but it is
Mm,
very difficult.
it's
You're not living it
isolating.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very isolating.
it's an isolated experience. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are, like you having the Facebook page and everything, and your website, that's going to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they're not alone.
the community is important. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
from a neuroscience perspective, we're learning through co-regulation that we can't do this alone. You cannot go into a hole and do this on your own. You need other people around you witnessing your journey, helping you love where you can't love, right? And
Yeah.
that's ultimately the role of a therapist is the therapist helps you bring love to those parts of you that you really resist, right? The therapist helps the love come into the body. It's somatic. It's not in your
Yeah.
head, it's in the body. And the body's talking through sensation, through the eight senses, taste, touch, smell, blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
Mm.
seekingbalance.com.au, join the community. And if you're interested in sensing ground, which is beyond symptoms and really looking at purpose and pleasure and how to be connected to your contribution so that you can sleep well at night and not feel cluttered with confusion because the world is confusing. Sensing ground is that next step beyond symptoms and really into expansion and exploring pleasure and spirituality in your own unique way. So, thank you so much for your time, Nikki,
Thanks, Joey.
and it's a bye for now.
Bye. Thanks.